Hey everybody, it's about 1:45 in the morning and I'm just now getting home. Sorry I missed the live tonight. We'll try to do our IPM discussion real soon, maybe Friday or I know we won't do it Saturday because we've got a festival on Sunday to get ready for. And the reason I couldn't make it is I was cooking all day for a newly arriving Afghan family who were supposed to be here day before yesterday, and they missed their flight. And then they came in today and called us from Washington, D.C. at about 5 o'clock when they were boarding to get on a plane from D.C. to Atlanta, which should only take an hour and a half. So I had cooked all day knowing they were coming in today and went down to finish the cooking and to greet them when they came in. Taught an English class at 5 p.m. They weren't supposed to land until 6:30, I guess, or 7 o'clock, and they should have been to their new apartment by 7:30. I could serve them their dinner, come home and be ready for the broadcast. Well, they disappeared. And we can't contact the person who was supposed to pick them up at the airport. They're not answering their WhatsApp. Their older son that came in, you are everyone, Suzanne. Hi. Well, you're up late. Anyway, so by 9:30, we still didn't know where they were. We couldn't reach anybody who's in charge usually of picking them up at the agency. And I started calling the airport, calling police stations, see if there'd been an accident, trying to figure out what hospital they would have been taken to. Absolutely, their oldest son, who had arrived last week, was in absolute panic. You know, where's his family? I couldn't with a clear conscience come home and leave him by himself in the panic over where's his mother and father and siblings. So about the time we contacted the airport police and told them about the situation, a van arrived with one of the siblings and a bunch of luggage. I was amazed at how much luggage they actually were able to get out of Afghanistan. And then the rest of the family showed up about 20 minutes later in a separate vehicle. So these people had been awake since 1 a.m. yesterday our time, and they didn't reach us until 11 p.m. our time. They look absolutely flat out exhausted. So I got them to eat. I know the older people are very polite and, you know, they'd say, yeah, it's good, blah, blah, blah. But the real litmus test was the 6-year-old who dug into the food and wanted seconds and really enjoyed what he was eating. And I said, kids don't lie. So not that adults lie, but you know what I mean. So the little one ate until he was full and went and lay down on the couch and passed out. So I'm just now getting home and able to get on and let you know what happened. It's 12:47 a.m. And by now I'm assuming that the Afghan family is all passed out. At least I would be. But they haven't been taught how to use a stove or how to use their microwave or any of the modern gadgets. I bought them a microwave and I bought them an Instant Pot. And I told them if they need me tomorrow to call me. So I may be live tomorrow night. I may not. Depends on what their needs are. And then we have a festival on Sunday that we have to pack things up for and get ready and staged and decide what we're going to take for that event on Sunday. So I'll try to do a live on IPM between now and then. If not, we'll do one next week. I promise. Okay. So Mike's here. Mike, you're a night owl too, huh? Glad y'all stopped in. Let's see. I'm going to go over to he says 2 people. So Suzanne and Mike are my 2 night owls here. You know, Suzanne, I really want to do some of the collaborations, and I was going to start one myself this summer, and I've just been so busy between volunteering and the garden and work and those type of things. Okay, kitten is great. We've renamed it. I found Homer hard to say. I'd go to call him and I'm like, what would he named? So he is now Morris. Morris seems to be easier to come out of the lips. And I got hurt, yeah. Anyway, this is life. But so Morris the cat, he is now at the stage where he's running around the house. And as you walk, he jumps up and grabs the back of your leg and bites you. He's figured out how to actually get up on my desk. And there's no ignoring him. He's going to have to get on you. And he's eating real well, but he's not grooming himself like we'd like to see him. There's a short coming out you may want to keep an eye out for. He's discovered my hairbrush that I keep on my desk here. And a lot of the kitties, when they hear me brushing my hair, will come running. Well, Morris has learned that this is a brush and it feels good. And he'll come, I just broke my brush. So he'll come running and he likes you to do his tummy. I'm going to have to buy a new brush. Nope, I got it. He comes running and I go to do his tummy and he's sprawled out. I'll wait. I won't ruin it for you. You got to look at the short. I forget when I've got it scheduled to be released, but you'll know it when you see it. Hey, Robert, welcome. Is he a curtain climber yet? Well, we've got so many pieces of furniture and boxes and everything. My house looks like a storage shed stacked up in front of the windows. He hasn't found a curtain to climb. The only rooms that have curtains are the office, the master bedroom, and the guest room. I don't like curtains. So what you doing, Robert? What are you doing up so late? Y'all, I met Robert. He did a review of our channel from inside a commercial dryer as the most original thing I never heard it. I'm still laughing about it. And he's got the most wonderful voice. I love Robert's voice. And I joined one of his collaborations on weighing food. I don't even know if it's over. Robert, is it still going or is it over? I don't even know because I've been so busy. I haven't been able to pop in or read his rules or when the contest was over. But it was fun for a while. And when we harvested the 98 pounds of squash, Charlie was flabbergasted. And we still have 2 more of those squashed away. So, yeah, Robert, I've had a stressful day trying to deal with refugees. And what they said was the guy that was supposed to pick the family up at the airport said he left his phone in the car, and they were in the airport from 6 o'clock to, I think he said, 10:45 when the family actually arrived. Some sort of weather delays that they had the plane circling. I don't understand how an hour and a half flight turns into, what was that, 5-6 hours. I'm glad I wasn't on that airplane. I would have been frantic. But so I'm like, how can you leave your business phone in the car when you're there, when you're working? I don't know. But we were beside ourselves, and as I say, I was calling the police and about to start calling hospitals. So a very stressful night. I got them fed, we got them settled in, and they were all collapsing on the floor and whatever when I left to come home here. If I don't know all what. Hey, GT Jr. Hi. Drive by listening. Welcome, welcome. I'm having almost better attendance here in the middle of the night than I get earlier. So, Robert, is it over? Is the contest over, or do I still tag everybody? And how did I do? Oh, I guess when life settles down a little bit more, I'll be more in tune with everyone. And I really apologize. It's been a crazy summer. Yeah, I'm going to be doing 1 to 2 festivals a month from now through Christmas. So I may be scatterbrained until the middle of the winter when I'm starting over with all my seeds. But Robert, I don't know what you do for a living. So I get the impression it's something to do with wildlife, but my possums are going to be ready to be released next week, except for the 3 that were so sick when I got them, and they're still sick. They've got what's called metabolic bone disorder, which means they'll probably go to a wildlife center as ambassador animals, unless I renew a permit to keep them longer than just for a couple of weeks. Maybe next year for me. So how did I stack up, Robert, with the other growers? I mean, I'm only growing for my husband and myself, and y'all wouldn't let me weigh the produce that I gave away to the refugees. So they seem to like my cooking tonight. I cooked Lebanese food for them, which is absolutely nothing like Afghan food, but I don't know enough Afghan recipes to do a full meal. Hey, GT. Yeah. So I'm really sorry about missing the IPM talk. Charlie even was going to do part of it. But we'll do that next week if I'm not on between now and Sunday. But it was what a day. And I'm one of those people, I can't come home and just go to bed. Charlie's gone to bed. He has to get up at 5 to go to work. This is one of the few days he has to actually drive to the other side of Atlanta and show up at the office. But I can't do that. I've got to unwind. So I'm unwinding with you guys. And I'll probably go read a book a little bit. Yeah, Robert, so what do I need to catch up? Do I need to watch a lot of your lives or what? To be honest, some of the broadcasts I poke my face into, I know it's probably harmless banter, but it just doesn't set well with me. The insulting, going back and forth. So I didn't stick around for a lot of it. But I have made some good friends because of your collaboration, because of the contest. Yeah, so maybe your next one, eh? I still like to know how I stacked up. But I don't know what we're going to grow next year. We'll probably probably do the Tromboncini again. That was a monster squash. And definitely the Georgia Candy Roasters. My gosh, were they good. Mike, did you grow those this year? I thought I saw one in your garden, the Georgia Candy Roaster. Robert, have you ever grown that? We've probably got 4 or 5 still on the shelf, and I may want to do a video on it. I cut them in half and, pulled out the seed and chopped up some dried apricots, pecans, of course, salt and pepper on it, and brown sugar, and slow bake them. Yeah, I know it's a team competition, but I'm hoping my contribution was worth something. As I say, we're just real small operations. It was really good, Suzanne. The Candy Roasters is almost like a sweet pumpkin, but it's a squash about that big, and they kind of look like a pregnant banana, and pumpkin colored, and then they stay green on the ends. It's the first year we actually successfully grew them, because in years past the vine borers got the vines before they actually produced any squash. But Adrienne over at Indiana Backyard Gardeners told me, go try a trap plant, and one of the decoy or trap plants, you want to call it, which will be part of my IPM lecture, was a Hubbard squash. And we didn't expect to get any Hubbard, but evidently it attracts all the beetles that eat the leaves, and the vine borers that go into the vine and kill the vines. And we got a Hubbard, but we also got about half a dozen Candy Roasters. So next year we're going to do that again and grow even more, because they are really good. Oh, October 23rd. Okay, we've got to weigh 2 more squash. We just picked our first half a bushel of figs, and I'll have Charlie weigh those. So Mike, how are you going to cook your candy roaster? Yeah, we had 2 vines and we got 6 squash, so 3. Maybe they only produced 3 squash per vine. So Suzanne, next year, try planting the blue Hubbard squash. What we did was a candy roaster, a blue Hubbard, a candy roaster. And the blue Hubbard attracted a lot of bugs, but the candy roasters produced for the first time, and we've tried them for 4 years prior to this and never got one. And I said to Charlie, this year, if it doesn't produce, we're going to give up on candy roasters. Well, we got a good bit. We've got bitter melon coming out the yin yang. This is the first year that the serpent gourds have not done well. But we tried them in grow bags. And I think they're going to have to go in the hugelkultur bed. Right now we're harvesting yard-long beans. And I'm about to start planting sugar snap peas, and they should grow through December. I need to get the collards and the kale in. Okay, Mike. Yeah, I've got a what load of peppers I picked, and I'm going to be picking more Saturday to go sell at the festival. Let me know what your chopping pepper's doing. I've made 4 kinds of hot pepper jelly. And you said I can't send you any because you're not eating anything sweet. But I was going to surprise you with a jar, since you like hot. Robert, do you like hot peppers? Because if you like hot peppers, I'll send you a bottle of, or a jar of hot pepper jelly too, if you want some. The catch is you got to review it. I have made up some meat rubs if you'd rather have meat rub. I'm looking for people who will review my meat rub, actually cook with it and eat their cooking and say whether they like the rub or should it be a little bit hotter or they found it good or not. So if you're interested in participating in that and doing a review on camera, and then maybe coming on live and talking about it, let me know. I know Robert doesn't let us see his face. He's got that frog eye. I love the frog eye. But Mike's the same way. He doesn't let us see his face either. You stop at the heat level of cayenne. Then Mike's dehydrating. I've got gallon upon gallons of dehydrated peppers, all sorts of heat levels. I'm afraid to get into the dehydrated ghost peppers. I've got reapers and ghosts dehydrated. I don't know what to do with them, Mike. Robert, I grew some really weird cayennes this year. They're called Thunder Mountain. And you know, I can't find an Indian cayenne in a market in this area to save my soul this year. So yeah, every year when I grow peppers, I concentrate on a different part of the world. This year was the Middle East. In fact, I'll probably give away some of my cardula seeds. It's one of my new favorite peppers. So next year I thought I'd concentrate on India and Mexico. So I've been doing my research on India, and there's quite a variety of peppers that are used on the continent, and they differ from what region of India or Pakistan through Bangladesh, through Nepal, the subcontinent. There's quite a variety of peppers that they use that are unique to their areas. So once I make a list, then I'll start looking for them, and I've got an import license I paid for to get them through customs. And what I usually do is I'll grow them for the first year and taste them or whatever. And the ones I like, I'll save the seed for next year. But the first year I grow pepper, they're expensive when I sell the pods because they cost me a lot of money bringing the seed in. But the following year I drop the price because I've grown this, my own seed. Yeah, Suzanne and Robert, I eat up to the level of a Scotch bonnet, which is the same level as a habanero. They're cousins, and some of them they look identical in some forms, but they're the same level of heat. And the Sugar Rush Peach, which is gaining popularity in the United States, is a cross between the Scotch bonnet and a South American ají pepper. And the reason they call it a Sugar Rush Peach is when you first bite into it, your taste buds will tell you have a mouthful of powdered sugar, and it's like, wow. And you don't detect any heat. It's just sweet, sugary sweet, and then all of a sudden the heat hits you. And when I tried it, I was in my greenhouse, and I planted the peppers in late August, and by Christmas I actually had pepper pods. And one of the pepper groups I'm a member of, and I have a pepper page on Facebook if you're interested. It's called Pepperhead Seed Exchange, where we swap seeds and talk about what we do with our peppers. Anyway, I said, hey guys, I've got Sugar Rush Peach. Would you tell me how to use them? And everyone said, oh, it's a snacking pepper. It's a snacking pepper. Just, pick it and bite into it. I think they were playing jokes on me because I bit into it and I had that mouthful of sugar. And then all of a sudden I had to run out of the greenhouse spitting. I had to hold on to the trees because the world was spinning. I was spitting up, just mucus just dripping. I thought I was going to pass out. That's hot. So I decided, what am I going to do with them? I have all these beautiful peach colored, that's why they call it peach. They mature into a peach color. And I said, I'll make some jelly. So I made my first batch of Sugar Rush peach jelly and combined them with pineapple. And Charlie's making all sorts of funny faces. If you remember my Facebook page, Friends of Our Georgia Suburban Homestead, I've got a picture of his face when the face he makes when he gets something in his mouth that's too hot. But you always have a little bit of a bowl full of foam or a little bit of jelly that didn't fit into a jar. And he tasted it. Well, every night we have a date at 10 p.m. I have to log off the computer, walk away from work, and go sit on the couch in the living room. We turn on Netflix. We hold hands. You can picture a couple of old folks sitting there holding hands. So I go to sit down to watch our nightly TV show, and I look over and he's cracking the lid on a jar of the Sugar Rush peach jelly, and he's got a whole thing of Ritz crackers and his vegan cream cheese, and you put the cream cheese on the cracker and a little bit of the jelly, and I'm sitting there. What is he doing, Mr. I don't go near anything hot? He ate that whole jar. And then the next night he tried to do it the same. I said, are we going to eat all 10 jars, or are we going to, market them? So this year I did a triple batch. But instead of just pineapple, I put mango with it. And it's really delicious. I did add a few more peppers than I did last year, so the heat level is a little bit higher. But the pineapple, Robert, takes the pain out. The enzymes in the pineapple evidently digest the pain. And of course, if you eat something that's too hot for you, you can put just table sugar in your mouth, and that takes the pain out. So between the sugar and the jam and the pineapple, it's not as hot. But if you eat cayenne, they approach a let me look at the shoe for cayenne versus Scotch bonnet. Okay, a cayenne, the Scoville unit heat index is 30,000 to 50,000. Okay, it's not close. The Scotch bonnet is 100,000 to 350,000. So no, you won't be able to do the Scotch bonnet, Robert. So what do you do with your hot peppers, GT, and how hot do you go? Cayenne, Robert, if you have blood pressure problems, if you make a tincture of your cayenne, take your cayenne peppers and take a mason jar and fill it halfway full with chopped cayenne peppers, and pour at least 80 proof vodka over the top, and fill the jar up with the 80 proof vodka. It can't be under 80. It's got 80 proof and above, and leave that for 2-3 weeks. Strain the peppers off, and then use the tincture 3 or 4 drops at a time in a glass of orange juice once a day. It'll lower your blood pressure. I swear to you, it works. We had a neighbor in South Florida that had a really bad heart. He had been through 2 open heart surgeries. He had a pacemaker, and his blood pressure was still sky high. And we got talking about herbalism, and I already made a couple of tinctures for some problems I had down there, and they work. So he went and did his own research and found out about the cayenne tincture, which I had not looked into because I don't have a blood pressure problem. And so we ordered it online. I want to say Dr. Scholl's, but that's the guy that does your feet. But he ordered the cayenne tincture, and he remembered me saying that if you didn't like the heat of something, to add something sweet to it, the sugar or whatever. So he tried it in his orange juice, and he did that every morning. And his blood pressure was normal next time he went to his doctor. So his doctor ended up either reducing his medication or taking him off blood pressure medication as long as he did his tincture. So GT says that habanero is the hottest pepper he'll eat. And you turn your hotter peppers into hot sauce. Yeah, so you would probably like my Scotch bonnet jam or my Sugar Rush peach jam. I actually did Sugar Rush peach this year with the pineapple and Georgia peaches. Your walking cayenne tincture. Is that what gives you that sexy voice? Hey, did you ever go back and check on that turtle egg nest that you relocated? I'm curious of whether they actually hatched and made it. Well, it's 1:15 in the morning, and I'm not tired. Do I have a video of what? Oh, I see. 9:14. It's 1:15 here. How long does it take turtle eggs to hatch? "45 to 90 days, Robert." "45 to 90 days." So GT, you talking about the cayenne tincture? Do you want me to do a video on that? So, Robert, do you have something to do with the Department of Natural Resources there in Alabama, or you're just a nature lover like I am? So how many of you remember how the tiny little possums that came to me in July that were like this big? You remember me holding one up for the camera and feeding it with a syringe? Some people will say, yeah, if you're going to do a tincture, use a dehydrated, whatever it is you're tincturing, because when you tincture something fresh, it adds water to the mixture, which dilutes it a little bit, and it may cause spoilage. But I would just tincture a fresh pepper. But you could do it with dried peppers. It's just you wouldn't put half a jar of it. You do a quarter jar of the dried pepper flakes and then pour the vodka. Thank you for stopping in, Robert. I was going to show you the possum and how big it's grown. More about me. What about me do you want to know? We'll be good at it. How's that, Robert? I said, if you can't be good at it. You keep being you. I love your voice. Do you sing? Y'all be good, you hear? GT wants to know more about me. What kind of things? I'll answer just about any question that's not too terribly personal. What started me growing food? My family, I grew up in the mountains of Massachusetts outside Boston, a mountain called Knobscot Mountain. And my granddaddy moved in. My dad died when I was 5 years old. And my grandfather moved in with us to give me the male guidance. And he always had a vegetable garden. It was teeny tiny compared to what we have today, that my husband and I have today. When we moved to the Carolinas in my teenage years, we didn't have a vegetable garden because we were in a neighborhood that just wasn't the right place for it. But then when I married my husband, legally in 1982, but we shacked up 2 years before then, he was in graduate school and we didn't have money to buy food. So we ate what I could go to the woods and shoot. I'm very good with a firearm. I was on the varsity rifle team in high school and college. And we lived across from 500 acres owned by the Dean of Agriculture at Auburn University, who gave me permission to hunt on his land and fish in his stocked fish pond. So Charlie would go off to school in the morning and I'd go off to the woods with a fishing pole or my rifle. And that's the only protein we ate, is what I could shoot or fish out of that pond. So that was 1982. I finally got a job sometime the following year, and we were able to buy our first house on 3 acres. We had 14 pecan trees on it and a huge garden. So 3 acres with a 3-bedroom house with pecan trees. And it only cost us $22,000. And that was 1980, late 1983, early 1984. Can you imagine 3 acres for $22,000? And the job I had found was with the College of Agriculture at Auburn University. And I've always been a writer. I started publishing short stories in 3rd grade and had a knack for writing. So the professors in the College of Agriculture hired me to come in and help them write their research papers. So they would do the data collection and the whatever they were studying, and I would enter the data into the computer. My husband happened to work for the agricultural college while he was in graduate school in the statistics department. So my data would go directly to him and he would analyze it, send back the analysis, then I would sit with the professor and actually write the paper for them. So I had a lot of knowledge. I gained a lot of knowledge through their agricultural research. And when they would finish one study, they'd pass me to the next professor in the department. So I worked for Joe Touchton, who was on the early ends of what they call no-till farming. I worked for Ken Sanderson, who was the person that hybridized poinsettias, so that you see the polka dotted poinsettias or the white poinsettias. That was Ken that did that. He also was the one that came up with the miniature violets, that you can get the little teeny little miniature violets. That was actually all done with hormones. I worked, there's all sorts of things. I worked for one of the country's leading turf specialists for golf courses, Coleman Ward. Morris Huck with the USDA. Then I did research on corn, on watermelon, peanuts. And then they ended up, when I bought the 3 acres of land, they'd say, would you test grow this for us? So then I started growing herbs and vegetables that they were trying, new cultivars or crosses or whatever, in my garden. So this is a lengthy answer for you, I know. So I was involved in agricultural research firsthand. Then, of course, I had to learn how to cook all that stuff, right? So how long have I been growing my own food? The short answer would have been since I was a kid, but doing it seriously is after I got married, and it was a necessity and then part of my job. Then I got pregnant probably 4 or 5 times. The 5th time, and I miscarried everything. And the 5th time, it was a stillbirth because I was about 5.5 months along when I lost the baby. And when that happened, by that time I was working on my master's in counseling psychology. And Charlie had finished his 2 master's degrees, one in operations research and one in biology, and he decided he was going to do a PhD in statistics. And we got looking for statistics programs in the country, and he was accepted at Rensselaer at New York, Phoenix, Tempe, Arizona, and the University of Florida. But I knew I couldn't take my horses. By this time I had a couple horses. I couldn't take them to New York, and I said, I'm not moving to New York. He didn't want to live in the desert, so University of Florida it was. And we bought 5 acres of land there and totally lived off the land, growing all of our food. We're sustainable permaculture. We had milk goats. I made my own cheese. I made butter, cheese, ice cream, soap out of goat milk. We had chickens. We had geese. We raised goats. Do I publish books? Yes, I do, but you wouldn't want to read them. Who taught me how to use a firearm? I'm a natural. I mean, I'm not being glib with that. As I said, I lost my dad when I was 5 years old, and he was my hero. And he had been a sniper in the Army and went from sniper to information gatherer. When he got out of the Army, he was one of the early members of the NSA. He was a code cracker. So after he died, what I knew about Dad was that he had been a sniper. And I always thought that was cool. My mother was totally against guns. When I got to high school, I was in ROTC, and they had a rifle team in high school, and it was all boys. And I asked the chief or the top sergeant if I could come shoot the gun. So I showed up at he says, yeah, come shoot the gun. And I showed up at the range, and they put me in a prone position and handed me I take it you know about firearms. They handed me a .22 small bore single shot rifle with a bolt action. Showed me how to load it and how to center myself. And I shot a 10 target piece of paper. First time I ever had a firearm in my hands, and I got a near perfect score. Bullseye and everything except one of them was on the 8 ring. So all the boys are like, she did what? So Top Sarge put another target down there and said, do it again. And I did it again. So that got me on the team. And then I qualified for the college team. I ended up being captain of the rifle team by my senior year. And then at Auburn University, I was on the varsity team. So I was pretty good with a long arm. I'm pretty accurate with a short arm. But who taught me? I'm self-taught. I'm just good at it. Anything with a hand-eye that takes hand-eye coordination, I tend to be really good at. Bowling, archery. But if it takes physical coordination, you can forget about it. What job did I enjoy most? That's a toss-up between being an emergency veterinary technician, which is how I put myself through college, my first 2 degrees, and and my career as a journalist. I've got a little bit of ADD going on, and I'm a type A personality. So I push myself, which you probably already know by now. But the journalism, you have that constant deadline pressure. You had the pressure to be accurate, at least when I was doing it, you did. Nowadays, they don't seem to care about accuracy. And I've always been a writer, so I enjoyed writing. And one of the things I liked most about journalism is every day is different. And you could be interviewing someone living under a bridge in the morning, and in the afternoon, you could be interviewing a head of state. So, and I had people all the way up to the president's office returning my phone calls. So it makes you kind of inflates your ego. You learn something. Every day you're learning something, and I like learning some new things every day. Okay. So I know the brain well, and I know how to engage in dialogue. Can I read body language? Oh, yeah. And I can read international body language. One of the courses I took in my master's program was behavior modification, where you can control, or you have a better chance of controlling a conversation and the outcome of an interview by controlling the body language, using your own body language or reading their body language to know if you can push them this way or that way. And the adolescent psychology I took actually works better on adults than it does kids. But it was a great background. I've got undergraduates in history and psychology, a master's in counseling psychology, all but clinical, a master's in Islamic studies, which was a comparative religion program, and another undergraduate in journalism. And that background really was good as for journalists. The history taught me how to research. The psychology taught me how to deal with people. And my overall curiosity about everything was my driving force. What plant has given me the most issues? Plant has given me the most issues. Here in Georgia, it's been the cucurbits, the cucumbers and the squash and everything, because the vine borers around here are amazing. And don't be too impressed with me collecting all those degrees. My husband has a whole list of degrees too, because we ended up getting jobs working at the universities we were attending. And when you worked full time at that time for the university, you went to school for free. And they'd even pay you while you were in classes. So you could stand up, walk away from your desk and go take your class and come back without being penalized. So you only do that for so long, and boom, you've got the hours for another degree. So that's how we ended up being degree collectors. And if I was still working at a university, I'd still be taking classes, because I want to know everything. I mean, I have so many different, things I want to know. But as far as the plant that gives me most issues, it's got to be the cucumbers, melons, and squash. And that's because the pest pressure here where we are. And I've kind of come up with a way of growing the tropical things here. I put them in the polyhouses, greenhouses over the winter. And so far I've had good luck bringing the real tropicals through pretty cold winters. We had 7 below in December. I know in Alaska that doesn't sound like much, but 7 below here in Georgia, that was amazing last year. I had my turmeric and my ginger came back, of all things. But trees that are supposed to be native here didn't. It was amazing. So Mike is dehydrating 6 types of peppers. Hottest is Scotch bonnets. Oh, Mike, even if you wear gloves, the oil from the Scotch bonnet goes through the gloves, and then I go use the potty and woohoo. So be careful when you be careful what you touch. Why did I choose Georgia to settle? Well, the weather in South Florida where we're living had started to get really bad. I mean, in 2005, we had 5 hurricanes pass over us, directly over us. The last one was Wilma, and we were without water for a couple of months and without power even longer. And that was at the very end of the season. Katrina had gone over us and all the others. And I was watching how the ocean was rising. And during high tide, you couldn't park on the ground level of the parking garages along the coastline because they'd be flooded. Crimes against elderly people were going way up. A woman at the grocery store I shopped at was someone drove by her in a van and grabbed the strap of her purse, and she held on to it, which is natural. And they dragged her down the street until she disintegrated. And I looked at Charlie and I said, you know what? I think we need to go somewhere where we don't get hurricanes, where property taxes aren't so high and insurance isn't so high. But I want 4 seasons. And he says, well, he doesn't like cold weather, so we can't go so far north that he's freezing his butt off. So we got thinking, when we lived in Auburn, Alabama, we used to come to Atlanta to shop at an international farmers market. It's called the DeKalb Farmers Market, because by that time I was cooking things from around the world and you couldn't get the ingredients anywhere else. We'd come to Atlanta for the restaurants there from cuisines from all over the world. And it was totally affordable. It was 47% cheaper than living in Fort Lauderdale. So we had 4 seasons. None of them were too long or too severe. We had cheap living. We had an international airport. If we want to travel, we could jump on an aircraft. We've got great restaurants. So we came to the Atlanta area, and I chose Gwinnett County because of the diversity here. I don't like being around exclusively white people. I built my career writing about non-white people, and I just love culture, and I love people from other places. So I chose the most diverse county, and now we know one of the most controversial counties in our state. I've seen the governor and that ilk of people go after the people in this county, trying to take away our voting rights and disenfranchise us because of the demographics here. But that's why we moved to Georgia. The cost of living, short seasons. We have 4 seasons, none too severe. We figured we could grow the vegetables and things that we grew at Auburn, and that's true to a certain extent, but this is a little different from Auburn, Alabama, as far as the diversity of what we can grow. And then we have the airport and all the restaurants and cuisines. And it was so nice moving here, where people actually, if you're coming out of a parking lot, they'll slow down and let you in. Okay, when you're driving. In Florida, you get the finger and honking on the horn and rude things being said. But and it's kind of getting that way here because we've got so many people moving into the area from other places. But I've got neighbors in this neighborhood from Africa, from parts of the Middle East and Asia, and then I've got good old boy Georgians, and I have people from back home Boston across the street. I've got people from El Salvador. So I've got it good here, you know. It's Jamaican up the street. I always tell him he's Jamaican me crazy. He tends to show up when the Scotch bonnets are in season. I say, you only love me when the peppers are here. But that's why I came to Georgia. I don't think I could live in Alaska because of what part of the year is it dark? My husband has, what's that condition where you don't get enough sunlight during the winter? You get ultra depressed. I call it SAD, I think. Literally SAD. He gets that here. So we have to put red lights up, and if you stare at a red light during those bouts, it's supposed to improve your mood. And he's got grow lights. He goes so he can get the sunlight to stay out of depression. So Alaska wouldn't be for us, but my father's favorite state was Alaska. He used to go camping up there. So I've shared quite a bit. Anything else you want to know? I don't know if I'm cool. I've just, I've got all that ADD energy. And I've always wanted to travel, and I haven't really done that much traveling except when I did documentaries. Mike, you never moved to the South. You spent summers in Georgia. What part of Georgia? I'm pretty open, GT. Maybe you know why I'm so weird now. Seasonal affective disorder is sad. Yeah, he's got that. Winter is dark, summer is sunny. You've got ADHD. So you're like me, you bounce all over the place, right? Multitasking is not a big deal for us. Columbus, Georgia. Yeah, we used to drive over from Auburn to Columbus to get some of our international ingredients. They had a lot of Vietnamese, and I was into Vietnamese cooking then. That's right, Mike. You get sad too. So that's why we're here, because I'm a damn Yankee. Charlie, he's from northern Alabama, southern Tennessee, of an Appalachian family that had been in that region since there were white people in that region. And he's both his parents, they're or at least a quarter to a half Native American. So he's got a very strong Native American background, which nowadays he's kind of rejecting the white aspect of his heritage and tuning into his Cherokee and Creek roots to the point he's trying to learn the language, Cherokee language, which is pretty complicated. And I'm just plain white bread, from a founding family in Boston. I've got revolutionaries in my bloodline. One finished the Ride of Paul Revere. The other one coined the phrase, "Don't fire till you see the whites of their eyes" at the Battle of Bunker Hill, if you know your American history. And then my father's family, the Bolivar, are of the Simon Bolivar bloodline that liberated South America from the Spanish and freed the slaves. So I've got revolutionaries on both sides of my family, abolitionists, but I'm a damn Yankee. And the difference between a Yankee and a damn Yankee. Anyone? Anyone knows what a damn Yankee is? A Yankee is someone from above the Mason-Dixon line, right? A damn Yankee is one that comes south and stays. So I'm damn Yankee. I've been living in the South now longer than I lived in New England. And I married a Southern boy. And they don't make them like him anymore. He's a Southern gentleman. I cuss and I curse up a storm, and I've got a temper, and he just laid back, shrugs it off. Every now and then looks at me and shakes his head and says, "Would you calm down?" And I'm finding the older I get, the less patience I have. And I used to joke when I was a younger woman about in training to be a battle axe, and I wanted to be that old woman in the big sun hat and the gloves that walked into a room and could say anything she wanted and get away with it. Well, nowadays you do that and they call you Karen, right? So you can start calling me Karen. My lives be all over the place, even when I work off of paper. Yeah. Favorite childhood game. That's kind of interesting because I'm an only child. So I didn't have siblings to play games with. I wasn't allowed to have friends over. I was the only girl in the neighborhood, so I was a real tomboy. So I did play jacks, but I was more apt to climb trees and fist fight with the neighborhood boys. We would go into the streams and with our bare hands catch catfish. Now, if you know anything about catfish, they've got those spines in their fins. So if you grab them the wrong way, you got a spine in your hand or whatever. And so the whole idea is to be able to catch a catfish and flip it out onto the shore without getting stuck. And then if you got stuck, it hurt like a you know what. But you couldn't cry because that would make you a wimp, right? So I was pretty good at flipping those fish. Another game we used to play was Make It Bleed. We have a grass up there we call Johnson grass, which is like as thick as your finger and really, really long with a lot of little hairs on them. And we pick them and we put them between our lips, okay? And yank. And it would cut your lips like little paper cuts. And we yank it and the blood would start coming down our chins. And we'd laugh about it. And you're not supposed to cry, right? So then you would do it again. And we'd sit there and we'd have all these cuts on our lips and we'd be bleeding. And I remember going home and my mother got really tired of me coming home with swollen, cut lips with blood all over my shirt or whatever. So when I'd go home after playing that game, she would give me a raw tomato and make me eat it like an apple because that would hurt. The tomato juice in those cuts. And that's what cured me for that game. So that was one of my favorite games, to Make It Bleed. Y'all crazy? I am crazy. I was a little boy. I'm going to tell you something really personal. You ready? Suzanne has been awful quiet through this. In the wintertime, when we'd go up on the mountain and play, again, I'm the only girl, right? And the boys would have to pee, and they would pee and draw things in the snow, and they'd have contests standing on rocks, seeing how far they could pee off the cliff, right? Well, I'd watch that, and they would always say, "Come on, Lisa, pee." Well, my mom would used to dress me in these snowsuits. They were like sweatpants, only they were quilted to keep you warm in the snow. So I decided, okay, I'll pee. And so I pulled my leg out of one side of my snow pant and put my foot up on a tree and tried to aim. It went down my leg into my pants. The boys were rolling in the snow, cracking up. The funniest thing they ever saw. And I had to walk 2 or 3 miles down that mountain home with a wet, stinky snow pants. And by the time I got home, the urine had eaten through my skin and I had the worst diaper rash from my woohoo down to my knees on one side. And my mother's like, "You're too old to be peeing your pants. What are you thinking?" I didn't dare tell her I had my pants off in front of the boys trying to pee off the cliff. But, so now you know something else very personal about me. Diarrhea it was bad. Chafed and red and I watched little boys do all sorts of things as we got older that I didn't participate in. You taught your female friend to pee standing up. Well, too bad we weren't friends back there, Mike. You could have coached me on how to pee off that cliff. Oh, so I was a tough little thing. I was a really feminine, petite little girl with a right hook that the boys would avoid. They didn't want to make me mad because I had a really good right hook, and I would always win the Make It Bleed contests. So I may have looked girly, but I was tough. But then when I started developing female features, they weren't interested anymore. It's like it scared them. Like, "You're a girl." Yeah, well, But so I guess culturally, I grew up a little boy, a tomboy. And consequently, as an adult, I don't relate to women. So when women get together, the things they talk about and the things they find important, I didn't grow up playing with dolls or doing the things that little girls do. I grew up a little boy, rough and tumble. I used to get in trouble in school because people would pick on me. I had a big butt and everything else was skinny. I had this big, huge butt, and they would call me names and make me, try to make me cry. And I would just turn around and pop them one. And then the little girls would bite and scratch me, and I'd pop them one, put them down on their butts. And I'd get in trouble for punching like a boy. The principal would rather have me bite and scratch. Explain that to me. So, if you're going to fight appropriately for your gender. How's that for forcing you into a gender role? And now you got me remembering all this stuff, GT. Back in the 60s, there was a lot of, people in here who don't look like me know about bigotry. But back in the 60s, as the civil rights movement was starting to really heat up, there was another prejudice. There's two prejudices, and one of them was against people who did not have blue eyes. So if you were white and you had brown eyes or hazel eyes like I did, you were told you weren't smart, that the smart kids were the blonde hair, blue eyed kids. Okay. So you were treated like you're an idiot. And I'm left-handed, and that was a big no-no. And they kept trying to force me to use my right hand. And I'm a stubborn little thing. And I'm like, no, I use my left hand. So they'd say, well, you're just a real dumbass because you've got green eyes and you're not a blonde and you're left-handed. And then on top of all that, I was dyslexic. So that probably helped turn me into the belligerent old woman I am today too, because I learned early on that either you're a victim or you're a survivor, right? So I'm still pissed off about the victimhood, but I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of that type of thing. About things for things that are totally out of your control. So I guess my advice to people who don't fit into the framework of what should be normal or accepted in society is screw society. You be you, love who you are and the way you were made. It's a gift. And embrace your differences and other people's differences. This is what makes us unique as human beings. So who wants to be normal? Anyone in here want to be normal? I'm going to ask you, GT, did you feel a need to fit in school? Are you a conformist or are you a rebel? Yeah, yes, Suzanne. I mean, I have come to understand talking about body function. When the old folks sit around and talk about this hurts or that broke, whatever. I can relate to that now and talk about it. You did in the beginning. And obviously the way I dress, I don't care about style and looking super feminine. My husband prefers me in a t-shirt and jeans, and he does not like makeup. So he likes me all natural. I understand that, Mike. So you felt pressure when you were younger to be normal, Suzanne? In your part of the world, what was normal for girls? And while you type, I'll tell you, growing up on that mountainside outside of Boston, I I wore tie-dye t-shirts with the sleeves rolled up. The boys would put their cigarette packs in their rolled up shirt, and hip hugger bell-bottom jeans. I hung out with the guys. I climbed trees. I did boy things. And then when I was 13, so I couldn't tell you what was norm for girls when I was in the Boston area. But when I was 13, my mother moved us to Charlotte, North Carolina. Wow, what a culture shock. My hair was down to the back of my knees. And all the little girls my age in middle school had bobbed haircuts to their chin. And they carried little monogram purses. And of course, I didn't carry a purse. What I needed was in my back pocket, as it is today. They all talked funny. Well, bless your heart, And I was a street kid. I wasn't used to saying yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. It was, huh? Teacher tried to paddle me for raising my hand during spelling test, saying, would you say that again? She thought I was being rude, and I was honestly not understanding her accent. And she tried to beat me with a paddle one day. It was back when they could paddle us in school. And she took me out of the classroom, backed me against the wall, and held this paddle in her hand that had holes in it. So when you swung it, it could go faster. And she says, turn around and bend over. I'm going to paddle you. And I looked at her and I said, you lay a hand on me, bitch, and I'm going to take that thing away from you and hit you. Well, she had never had a student talk to her that way. That's the way we talk in New England. So she hauled me to the principal's office. And he asked me what was going on. And he asked her what was going on. And then he turned to me and he says, I told him I couldn't understand her accent. And she goes, accent? I don't have an accent. You're the one with the accent. He shook his head and he asked me, how long have you lived in Charlotte? And I said, 2 weeks. And he looked at her and told her to grow up and go back and concentrate on teaching. And if Lisa needed to hear her say something more than once, then she would repeat it until I understood what she was saying. And she got up and she left the room, and he turned to me and he shook his head and he says, honey, do try to fit in, but some of these teachers are a little too brittle. And that was his way of talking about, I guess, fragile white folk. He was black, she was white. And so that's a memory. I don't have an accent. You're the one with the accent. Well, I did. I had a Boston accent. It was a tough street kid, But the little girl, Suzanne, had the little bobbed hair and the little monogram purse, and they had never seen a girl with hair as long as mine. And the boys, whenever I'd walk down the hallway, were always grabbing my hair and pulling it. So that was culture shock. But I had no desire to fit in to the girl culture in Charlotte, North Carolina in the 70s. You're never skinny like the popular gal. I've always shaped like a teddy bear. Park the car. Yeah, I park the car. If you get me angry, or if someone gets me overstimulated, overexcited, you'll see on a live, Boston comes out. And if Boston comes out, Charlie leaves. He goes, oh, we're in trouble. Park the car in Harvard Yard. My name with my mother isn't Lisa, it's Lisa. It's like Cuba. Yeah, I imagine the snow is something else. Have you noticed any type of climate change since you've been in Alaska? So, Suzanne, you say you're white. What's your heritage? I'll tell you about mine. Of course, my mother is English, Scottish, Irish, and my father was Basque, uh, and his mother is from the Netherlands. So Germanic Basque. You know who the Basques are? Basque. So, but when Daddy died when I was 5 years old, his family and my mother didn't get along, so I never really got to know my grandparents or his part of the family. So the Scottish, Irish, English part of my family, the English is my least favorite. My grandfather, who was a Scotsman with a little bit of Irish thrown in, basically raised me. And when his Scottish brogue, he was first generation American. When his Scottish brogue came out, I knew I was in trouble. Oh, and every morning he fed me oatmeal. And he'd say, "Here, lass, this'll put hair on your chest." So I blame him for the hair on my chest. Thanks, Papa. The glaciers have went so far back from 1992, you used to be able to touch them back then. Just in these few years, GT? French, probably Irish, English. Genealogy shows Native American. Do you know which tribe? Native American? Yeah, I can't believe what we're doing to the planet, GT. No one seems to care enough to do anything about it. I mean, we have to give up a lot of our creature comforts. And that's why I think homesteading is so important, or gardening, whatever you want to call it, to know how to grow food, how to preserve food. The day's not too far off when we're not going to be able to buy the variety that we can find in the grocery store. It's just not going to survive. I have been trying, and y'all tell me, do you like it better when I just ramble, or do you like my topic focused lives where I try to talk about a topic? Or do you like them both, just different things for different times? Because one of the things I'd like to do is I may reach out to the professors I used to work for. There are still a couple working, and have them talk about if they're doing any studies on growing food in a changing climate, because some of us that are in areas where the temperatures are swinging in ways that they have never swung before, the plants don't have time to produce the way they should because the temperature changed so rapidly. Case in point is here in Georgia, our fruit trees, we're having false spring times where it gets warm enough, long enough, for the fruit trees to come into bloom. And about the time they get in full bloom, we have a hard freeze, and that kills all the blooms. Well, that, you know what that does to the fruit crop. I've got it goes directly from winter to summer the last couple of years. You didn't have that slowly warm up where you had the cooler winter, the cooler weather crops in the spring, like the cucumbers and the peas and the green beans, because it got too hot too quick. You may have only, out of, like, you may plant 50 peas and only get a pound of sugar peas, whereas 10 years ago you would have had more peas than you know what to do with. Instellar. Now, what is it about? What is Instellar about? Gee, Mike, that sounds kind of naughty. Oral genealogy. Yeah, family myth is what you're talking about. That's right, regardless of what causes it. But there's enough science out there to show that our emissions are speeding it up, and the fact that we're clear cutting whole swaths of forest, the Amazon, we're losing our rainforests, which are really the lungs of the planet. That's real, and that is man-made. You can't deny that. One of the things I like to point to, and having worked in the news industry, I'm still addicted to news. So I keep up on all sorts of things. My Facebook page, I almost daily I'll post headlines, things that interest me. And I forget what I was going to say. Senior moment. Oh, during the COVID pandemic, when we were all in shutdown, if you go back to those years and Google air quality, greenhouse gases, and this type of thing, you'll notice when everyone was on lockdown, cities that didn't have clean air for decades, all of a sudden the air was crystal clear. And it's because people weren't driving around polluting. So incidents of asthma and breathing related problems not related to COVID, things like that were clearing up because we weren't out there driving everywhere. And the air cleared. And it stayed clear until people came out of lockdown, and now they're back to driving everywhere. That to me was a really clear indication of how much damage we're doing with our modern lifestyles. But again, how do you convince people that working from home is probably better than commuting to work unless you absolutely have to? It's what we really need to go to is non-commute, if we can, depending upon what your job is. Yeah, when air traffic shut down after 9/11, skies did clear up. Hey, Dark Lord, welcome back. We're being night owls. Yeah, so why don't we restrict travel? I mean, how can we do that in today's world? I mean, you've got the internet. You don't have to pick up and go somewhere. We put a cap on how many people can go be tourists to certain countries. I mean, how do we answer this? Of course, the airlines would really have a fit if you told them they could only fly certain days of the week, or they have to cut their number of planes in half. And think of the business people having temper tantrums over that. But you know what? If we started doing things like that, people would eventually adjust and it would become the new norm. But I don't think there's enough of humanity that's willing to make the creature comfort and convenience sacrifices to save us. I think we're gone. And we're at war with Mother Nature, and Mother Nature will win eventually. So what do we do in the meantime? We try to survive. We try to figure out and see how much adaptation we can do. But again, for us gardeners, how do we figure out what to grow and when? Are we going to have to learn to do without certain foods? Interstellar. Okay, is that a documentary? Science fiction film co-written and directed and produced by Christopher Nolan. Stars Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway. You have me already. I like those actors. Matt Damon. Yeah, okay. PG-13, no sex? I see that. We plant so many trees, Dark Lord. There's a saying in Islam, the Prophet Muhammad said, if you know the world is going to end tomorrow, plant a tree today. There's another saying that even if you know you'll never sit in its shade, plant a tree for someone else to sit under it and enjoy it. I'm an environmentalist, Suzanne. I am tried and true. That's why my yard is planted in native plants. I don't grow grass. I grow native wildflowers on what's supposed to be my lawn. I welcome wildlife of every type. I'm not into killing things. But the only thing I'll kill is a mosquito. Well, wind turbines and solar panels has got to be one of the ways to go. We've got to get off of fossil fuels and natural gas. If you have a better solution, let's see it. Lisa said no sex. If there's no sex in the movie, I don't want to watch it. I'm teasing. I'm teasing. Gripes about the planet. Yeah, I like action movies, Mike. Hey, speaking of action movies, have you watched, what is it called? Outlander? Yeah. Oh, Outlander. Mike, watch Outlander. Whoa. Charlie's very old fashioned, and when those scenes get spicy, he'd have to leave the room. And then they deal with gay sex, and he just, he's like, I'm out of here. I'm more tolerant. Yeah, that's it'd be more like Greta Thunberg, who takes a sailboat everywhere. God bless her. No, I believe in doing local action, Suzanne. You can't control other people, but you can control yourself and your little patch of paradise. And we try our best to recycle, to compost, to eat local, to grow what we eat. We are using more electricity than I would like to be. We do catch water. We've got rain barrels on just about every corner of the roof, plus on our deck that we built, we've got an IBC 750-gallon tank that catches rainwater that we try to use in the garden. So we try to do our part. The tandoor and the pizza oven we're building in the backyard will be burning limbs that fall out of the trees and yard clippings, and we're probably end up collecting branches and fallen things from the neighbors' yards too eventually. But after we burn them, then we will probably take those ashes and put them back into the compost bin, because you know what ashes do for your garden, right? So we try to set up an ecosystem, a permaculture system, as they call it, to have the cycle of life going on in the yard at any one time. And the plants grow better. Yeah, GT, I love my fellow four-legged earthlings. The two-legged, I know sometimes it's hard. It's really hard. But I call them faddists, not environmentalists. They're faddists. FAD, as in, you know, this week's fad, whether it's a slang term or a social movement or whatever's going on, that's them for that period of time. And then the next time something cool comes up, they ditch the first thing and they're on to the second. No, I'm the environmentalists that I deal with have been this way for life, and we appreciate nature and fight to protect it. And one of my friends basically lives off grid with no running toilet or whatever in her house. And she rescues wildlife, works her butt off doing yards and cleaning office buildings. And she's a very devout Christian, one of the most devout Christians I know, and actually walks the walk. Doesn't just do lip service. And she's probably one of the best human beings I know. And if she's watching this, she will eventually, because she has a friend in a retirement home that likes my videos. And so she'll recognize herself and what I'm saying, but I love her to death. And she is the type of person I aspire to be. She loves everyone. She doesn't have anything bad to say about anyone, and I'm all bitch. So I wish I could be like her, but I'm not. And she loves me anyway, which makes me love her more. Let's see. Hate fake environments. People listen to the talking points fed by the people who rely on making money from fossil fuels. Don't look at who's telling them solar is bad. I like saying a bridge will destroy environment because paper said so. Paper owned by the toll bridge owner. Toll barge owner. Chickens, and never knew they had so much personality. So glad to have chickens. I love chickens. If I could find a photo of me when I was first married and bought that first little 3-bedroom house on 3 acres, there's a picture of me in my kitchen with a chicken on my shoulder. I love my chickens. I love my girls and the sounds they make. And one of the things that makes me happy is I've got different breeds of chickens now that give me different colored eggs. And for some reason, it tickles me to pick up an olive green egg. I've got my olive eggers are just now starting to lay, and they really do lay olive green eggs. My Americanas give me light blue, light green, and pink eggs. The ducks give me kind of a whitish egg, and there is 2 chickens out there that are supposed to give me extra large eggs, but I'm not sure whether they're white or whether they're not laying yet, because now there are eggs. I can't tell whether that's a duck egg or a chicken egg, and it might be them. It's only 2 of them out there laying their extra large eggs. But it tickles me to go out and find these eggs. It's like finding Easter eggs. And they sit in my lap, and they come and they squat for me and want me to spank their bottoms. They think they're having sex. We don't have roosters. You can't have them in this county. And I'm right at the limit of how many birds, how many laying hens that we're allowed to have. And if I could have more, I'd have more. I love the sounds that they make, their personalities. Yeah, plant 10 trees for every year you're alive. We probably were planted out on this property, and we did the same thing to our property, our 5 acres in Florida. So we planted a boatload of trees. So maybe, Dark Lord, if you know some scientists, maybe you should suggest coming up with solar panels that can be reused or repurposed. I mean, that's probably a whole nother, they're probably already looking into that. I think they are, the science engineers. Oh yeah, GT, I didn't have them as a kid, but I've been having chickens since the early 80s. I had some leghorns. I think the leghorns, the big white ones, foghorn, leghorn, big white chickens. And I would sit on my back porch and they'd come sit in my lap, and there was a rooster that would drop his wing and do this little like Spanish dance around me and dance around me. And then he'd come over and cock his head and look at me and put one foot on my thigh. And you know what he was saying. He was making lewd suggestions to me. And looking dance, okay, squat. And like he wanted me. He was a nice rooster. Okay. Lots of eggs, your freeze dryer. Wow. Okay, I missed something. As far as talking points go, I'm a journalist, so I check everything out, and I doubt everyone unless I can prove that they're right. So it's me, Miss Doubt. Mrs. Doubtfire. Actually, Dark Lord, they are working on recyclable solar panels. I read that in the last month. And of course, it's the Chinese that are working on it. Can't recycle gas. God, after I eat chili, I'm kind of glad I can't recycle that gas. Okay, you can use minerals in the panels. GT, what are you talking about? Lots of eggs. You have a freeze dryer. I don't have a freeze dryer. I kind of missed what was being said. But Dark Lord, petroleum is a finite resource, and we're running out of petroleum worldwide. And what happens if we discover, and I've always said this, what happens if we discover that the oil or the petroleum that's under the surface of the earth, what if we discover that that is an essential element to keeping the planet balanced or keeping the environment the way it needs to be, and then we've used it and burned it all? I mean, think of how many ways petroleum is used. I mean, petroleum in this straw. There's plastics in everything. It's all around us. Petroleum is in plastics. Well, that's interesting, Suzanne, because windmills have provided power for much of the Netherlands for a couple hundred years. And we do need better tech. So Americans better start studying harder and engineering and science, and we tend not to. I don't know why Americans are so allergic to thinking in our generations. Wanting their bottom moved. I told my wife they were weird, the chickens. I didn't know any better. Have you seen my spanking the chicken video? It's a short where the chicken runs over to me and squats, and I kind of mimic what a rooster would do, climbing on her back, and then I spank her bottom, and then she stands up and she fluffs. I was like, "Ooh, that was good." She thinks she had sex. She goes and lays an egg. The The leghorns I just told you about that we had in Alabama, I could get them to lay 2 eggs a day if I'd spank them twice a day. No, I don't have a freeze dryer. I sell my eggs and I give a lot away to my refugee families. Although the refugees from Afghanistan, I have to convince them that the eggs that are different colors are really eggs. Yeah, fracking is bad news, Mike, and I have a natural gas stove. Fracking permanently pollutes water with forever chemicals that you can't recycle. Otherwise, we do recycle our water. You know, the water you're drinking has been through someone else's body. I forget the number they used to estimate how many times, but you're drinking essentially wastewater. But when it's fracking water, you can't use it. Yeah, the causing the quakes. Yeah. That is a very important. Wasting less is a very important part of the conservation, and we Americans are hooked on convenience. I mean, if you buy something that has to be individually packaged, like 4 cookies or whatever at a time, think of all those wrappers that are going into the landfill that take a super long time to break down. And whereas if you were to get a box of, let's say, cookies, and just take out however many you're going to eat in one meal and put it in a reusable container that you can wash and put tomorrow's sandwich and cookies and whatever in, how much would that cut back on the little individually wrapped packages and cut back on what goes into the landfill? And just something to think about. Right, Suzanne, so we need to find an answer for all environments, don't we? Yeah, spanking the chickens. Hey, you didn't see my video on that? Yeah, I'm on a well in Florida. I've got my farmhouse is on a well. Freeze dryer is faster, but let me look up that spanking the chicken video. See if I can post a link. All right, I'm going to try YouTube Studio. Content, right? Oh, I lost a subscriber. Y'all share my stuff, would you? I'm at 800. I was 866 this morning. I'm down to 865. I got to get these numbers above 1,000. Let me see. That's not. I don't know why I call that happy chicken dance. Let's see. I'm looking, bear with me, and I'm not looking at the chat. I'm scrolling through my content. Cat on my head. All this hasn't been released yet. So I'll come back to being able to read the chat in a second. How many of you watch my turmeric, ever see turmeric bloom? So only 1 minute and 15 seconds. I remember when the spanking the chicken video posted, I got some pretty snarky comments. One woman accused me of animal abuse, and I just kind of deleted that comment. I'm not going to tolerate that kind of thing. Scotch bonnet. You would think I like hot peppers with all these hot pepper things. Affectionate breed of chicken. All right. I think this is it. Yes. All right, I'm back. Here's the link. I'll give you all a minute to, it's a short, so it's less than a minute. See if that takes you to the video. And while you all are watching that, I'm going to scroll and see what I missed. All right. So GT, what did you think? If you look like she had a good time? When I walk in the chicken house, the chickens will run up and squat and want me to do that. And sometimes I do 2, 3 as I walk up to the nesting boxes. I've got to spank several chickens. Some of them I don't spank hard enough, so they come back and they want it again. Oh, Lordy. They do seem to enjoy that attention. And then what's funny is I've got a chair in the chicken house and a little chicken coop barn thing that's behind where the back of the chair is. And they'll jump up into the barn thing and then onto the back of the chair and put a foot on my shoulder. And if I could figure out how to get the camera turned on and turned around fast enough to get that, it's funny because they'll put their foot on my shoulder. And the newer girls that we got back in March or February, whenever it was, will look around at me and blink their eyes at me. They haven't asked for a spanking yet. It's the older girls that like their spanking. Yeah, I had someone do a snarky comment about animal abuse, and I'm like, look, if they didn't like it, they wouldn't ask for it. And if that's all it takes to keep them happy, then I'll spank whenever they ask, if I can catch them. Thank you, GT, and I'm glad you enjoyed all my memories. What's your name, so I know what your name is? So we've kept them company at work. Yeah, Mike, I would make a 10-cup pot of coffee every day and drink the whole pot. I finally got myself. I'm doing probably a quarter of that now. I don't want to totally wean off of coffee. I like the way it tastes. But I'm trying to wean on to herbal teas. I put vanilla extract and a bourbon-based echinacea extract in my coffee every morning. GT, okay. So GT, be well, and I hope to see you around. Um, we're going to do another live probably next week to talk about the integrated pest management that we were supposed to talk about tonight. So be well, GT. It's nice visiting with you here in the middle of the night. Too much blood in his cup, he says. That's pretty funny. Oh, I thought you were saying goodnight. Oh, okay, I hear you. So what do you do for work? Do you want to share that with us? I mean, with all my degrees that I collected, I'm a cashier 3 days a week at the Home Depot. And you know what? I have fun. I meet some really, really nice people. We don't get the interesting clientele that you see at Walmart, but some of the clientele is pretty interesting. We get some real a-holes. And there's a relatively new employee at our store that was scared to talk to me because he saw a customer start to get rude with me one day, and I turned and I looked at the customer in a way that shut him down. And GT was asking me, do I know behavior modification? Can I read body language? Yeah, and I can project too. And I can shut someone down with a look. And so this guy approaches me in the break room, and he says, Miss Lisa, I was so scared to talk to you. He goes, but I see, because I'm always bringing food in and sharing it and whatever. And he goes, but you're nice. He goes, but you got a look you give people, man. I've seen you stop people in their tracks. And I'm like, yeah, that's my eat shit look. I've used that with heads of state when they're lying to me. I give them looks like, yeah, right. And have them totally change what they're saying. I mean, about face on what they're saying. But now we're best buddies. He gives me a hug when he comes to work. And I introduce myself as the cranky cashier. But it's humbling when you realize how much abuse people give other people who work what they consider to be menial jobs or jobs that are below them. And I mean, the Walmart greeter, the Home Depot has greeters at the doors, at the main entrance of the doors. And those people's jobs are to keep an eye out for shoplifters, actually. And but they're there to help direct you if you need help finding something. And we had a greeter for the longest time until COVID hit. He was probably in his 70s. That was a retired, internationally known chemical engineer. Now that takes a lot of education, and he was a CEO at one time. A lot of education, a lot of experience, a lot of know-how, and he ended life as a greeter at the Home Depot and had a blast doing it. And we would sit and talk in the break room about where he'd been and what he'd done, and really interesting. So a lot of the people in my store are retired from careers and have had really, really interesting careers. We just hired somebody. Duval! Hey, welcome. We just had someone apply for a job at our store that was a ER physician, and COVID burned him out. He said, I just can't do it anymore. What's it like to work here? And I told him it's like a family, and we all support each other and emotionally. And if someone has financial problems, everyone kicks in $20 and helps them through it. So to go from all that education to being a cashier, I'm not ashamed of it. I'm kind of proud of it. And as I say, it's an education and learning how people talk down to people that they figure are working menial positions. But it's considered one of those front-end essential jobs because everyone has things that break that need to be fixed at the Home Depot. So a lot of people worked through the pandemic. I didn't. I sat it out, and they kept my job. They held my job for me. So Weird. Guy with baby waking up at 1:30 a.m. Oh, you've got a teether. Ah. Y'all hanging out with me at 2:38 a.m. my time. Then we're all crazy. Someone going to pop some popcorn and pass it around? That'd be a good snack about now, I think. So we've talked about all sorts of things tonight, Duval. GT asked me all sorts of personal questions. A lot of popcorn here. Okay, what do you all like on your popcorn? I'm going to give you a recipe once I see what you all like. How do you like your popcorn? Yeah, a doctor, an ER doctor, Suzanne. So the next customer that punches one of us in the face, he'll be there to put us back together. No one's going to tell me what they like on their popcorn. I mean, it's our guy walking. Oh. Ramen and popcorn are on the go to 3 teens. Hey, Gary, what are you doing up? No, I didn't see what you do for work. Do I need to scroll? Riding home listening. GT, I'm not seeing what you said. Butter and Parmesan cheese. Yum. Where are you going in Alabama? I only got a soda. Okay, one of my favorite things, other than garlic powder on my garlic butter on my popcorn, is to you take 3 tablespoons of butter and 3 tablespoons of smooth peanut butter. Mix it, put it in the microwave, and heat it up and mix it and pour that over your popcorn. Now you have to eat it with lots of paper towels because it's really messy, but once you start like that, you'll eat the whole bowl by yourself. Oh, experience disabilities. Oh, bless you, GT. Takes a special person to do that. So that's why you were asking about the read body language, huh? Because you're going to have to be intuitive to do that job. Yeah. So what's going on, Gary? What's going on with you? And thanks for popping in. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up. I keep forgetting to ask people to do the thumbs up and to share. I think people may like to hear all my secrets that GT had me talk about earlier. It is very important work, isn't it, Suzanne? Vacay. I don't know what vacay is. Thank you. Fresh Parmesan cheese. My Parmesan cheese in the fridge is all moldy. And so I looked up, was it safe to eat the mold? And actually it's good for you. So if you're curious, look up, is it safe to eat moldy cheese? And if it's a hard cheese, the answer is yes. In fact, it's encouraged and it's good for your microbiome. So I'm eating my green cheese. All right, Mike. Yeah, Parmesan and popcorn. Doesn't that sound good? It does depend on the cheese, Dark Lord. They said not to eat soft cheese that's moldy, but the hard cheeses, the mold's good for you. I like blue cheese, so that works because the blue in the blue cheese is a mold. Yeah. I don't think I've even tried the mold on cheddar because the cheddar doesn't last long enough here to get moldy. I really like cheddar. But I shop in bulk at the bulk stores, BJ's Wholesale Club, and you get a big thing of freshly grated Parmesan. And it always turns blue before I finish the jar. And so now I'm just keeping the blue cheese. I mean, the flavor's good. So, but I'm going to try some of that on popcorn. Charlie can't have anything that's made from milk, so he just gets plain salt and vegan butter on his popcorn. But if you try the peanut butter, remember 3 tablespoons of butter to 3 tablespoons of smooth peanut butter. The crunchy peanut butter isn't as good. Put that in the microwave, zap it until you can mix it and it's liquid, and then pour that over your popcorn. Boy, we've really covered some topics tonight, haven't we? Oh, that's too much work, Dark Lord. I need to make some more pepper vinegar tomorrow with my Scotch bonnets. So y'all want to know what I cooked for the Afghans tonight? See if I can get you salivating. I made a Syrian dish where you put spices like cumin, coriander, cinnamon, and allspice in some ground meat and stir that up, and then you put that in your rice with English peas and let it steam together. And then I did the lazy thing and got a couple of rotisserie chickens and shredded them. But I sauteed in vegan butter because I wanted Charlie to be able to eat it. I sauteed pistachios, slivered almonds, pecans, and walnuts. And you brown that in butter and you put that over the top. I put the rice with the pulled chicken on top of the rice, and then you put the nuts on top of that and sprinkle a mixture of coriander and parsley. That was the I'm reading the chat, getting distracted. So that was the main course, and then I did dal, DAHL. It's with homegrown curry leaf, asafoetida, which is also known as hing, tomatoes. I did coleslaw with honey dressing from the honey from my husband's beehives. And then I did a dish called shashak, SHASUCK, shashak, which is made all throughout the Middle East. And it's just about the same recipe from Morocco all the way through Afghanistan, which is tomatoes, onions, garlic, shallots, cumin, coriander, a little bit of cinnamon, red bell pepper, red onion, a jalapeno chopped up in it, or whatever kind of pepper you like. And you cook all that down until it's brown, almost seared. And then you make little holes in the paste. You end up with a paste in your frying pan. And in each hole, you put an egg, crack an egg and put it, and let it cook almost all the way through so that the center's still a little bit runny. And then you serve that. That was, they seem to enjoy that. So that's what I served to the people this evening. Yeah. Shred it myself. Yeah, I'm kind of lazy. And I've got all sorts of shredders that I could do that on, but I buy the bottle of shredded stuff. And I'm enjoying the mold. It tastes pretty good. So those poor people, they got on a plane at 1 a.m. yesterday morning, 1 a.m. in Istanbul. And they got off a plane in Atlanta at close to 10 p.m. So, and they didn't eat that whole time. They've got to be absolutely wiped out. So I had a warm meal waiting for them, and after they'd eaten, we cleaned up and we left, and that's why I missed the live tonight. But this has been fun in the middle of the night chat. Thank you, Suzanne. The agency is called New American Pathways. Wants to feature me in their industry ride catalog or magazine rather, because I started a book club with members of two families who are interested in expanding their English vocabulary. And I keep preaching to them that the number one thing that they need to develop first is their language skills, English, and then education. And then they can start looking for better jobs, because they really get placed into the slave jobs that Americans won't take. And where they come from, they've got the mentality that if you stick in a job, you're stuck there for life. And I keep trying to tell them the possibilities are endless here, but in order to take advantage of all your choices of what you might want to do, you've got to speak English. So one of them speaks beautiful English. The other I've been working with for 2 years, and he's struggling, but he doesn't practice. So the one that does pretty well, I keep telling him if he could get a job as a translator, he could make pretty good money. And he speaks Pashto, Dari, Urdu. He's learning Arabic. He speaks English. He speaks French, Farsi, and there's another language in there that he speaks a little, might be German. And I'm like, good God, man, you know what kind of money you could make as a translator in this town. But he needs to expand his vocabulary. So those of you who are familiar with, what's his name, Faisal Hosseini? Khalid Hosseini, the kite runner. So this guy's an Afghan. He's actually a medical doctor that took up writing, and he came in 1975, I think, as a refugee himself. But he's now a very accomplished physician, and he's written 3 bestsellers. The Kite Runner starts you off in 1975 with the Russian invasion of Afghanistan, and he talks about growing up there. So I suggested that we read this, and by the time we were in chapter 2, he was talking about different places in Afghanistan, and to see their faces light up when they read a paragraph and it talks about a physical place in Afghanistan, and they say, we know this, we've been here. Yes, that's down the street from my house. And they get all excited. So I'm hoping that I can keep that enthusiasm going through the whole book. But anyway, the agency has said that they want to feature me for starting this club, and now they want to know will I let other people perhaps come join. And we'll have to talk about that, because it's an awful lot of work when you try to explain concepts and vocabulary. But so that's one of the things, that on my copious free time I do. And Suzanne, I really think I'm lucky to have them, because when you help people, you're really helping yourself. And when you help people from another culture, you learn things about yourself and your culture that you never thought about. And seeing yourself through their eyes is very educational, and I'm hoping to become a better person. And they teach me to be a better person when I learn about my own shortcomings through their eyes. It's stimulating to me. And to see them going from having nothing to being successful is the most wonderful thing to see. A case in point is we moved here in 2014. I began volunteering with World Relief, which is no longer in existence. It was a 40-year refugee relocating group that Trump put out of business when he shut the borders. But I was helping at that time with the Syrian refugees, and this one family came with the clothing on their back with absolutely nothing, and that was end of 2014, beginning of 2015, and right before COVID struck, they bought their first house, and they actually bought the first house here in the town that I live in. So to go for having nothing to buying a house, and they all have cars and they have good careers. The young man is actually going to a university while he works and pays his own tuition. So that's pretty remarkable. When I hear Americans say we can't get ahead, we can't do this, we can't do that, I can't help but think of these refugees that go from zero to home ownership in 5 years. You know, it's amazing, and these people are driven, and they don't want to live like refugees. They want to live like people. You know. Yeah, Dark Lord. The flight from D.C. to Atlanta is only an hour and a half, but it took them 6 hours because of weather. But what weather? Is anyone in here from the East Coast up toward D.C.? What kind of weather are they talking about? Because the weather around Atlanta was clear. What would turn a 2 hour or an hour and a half long flight into a 6 hour flight? David, are you getting up or you just haven't been to bed yet? Yeah, the hurricane should be well out into the Atlantic, isn't it? Haven't slept yet. Me either, David. I'm not sleepy. Oh, so they had to go around the storm? You think there was a big storm between DC and here? But these poor people, you know? But I can't see how well I can't wait to see how well they do. Their oldest boy, who's 20, is really picking up English fast. He learned English before he came here. And then this particular group of refugees, before they allow them into the country, they spend time on a military base being debriefed and getting all their shots and the health screening and whatever. And they're really scrutinized closely. You know, the Afghans are really well vetted before they come here. And so they're on the base, in this family's case, for I think close to 6 months. And he's picked up a lot of English on that military base. Probably some bad words, too. I haven't heard them say yet. The Atlanta airport, yeah. Yeah, it's yeah, you got to run from one end of the place to the other. It's amazing. I don't like flying, Suzanne. When I was doing documentaries and flying all over the place, I was like white knuckle the whole way. And that I did a investigative piece. All my pieces were investigative, except for one that was done in Israel. The one I did on Boeing, putting faulty parts into its planes, and we projected, or we predicted, that there were Boeing planes were going to have tears in the fuselage and people were going to get sucked out through the hole. We predicted all that with our film, And then it happened. It was terrible with a flight out of Hawaii, landing in Hawaii. The skin on the 747 ripped, and the stewardess was sucked out the hole. It was really kind of gruesome. Anyway, so I'm doing this expose on faulty plane parts. And we had finished, and I was flying back to South Florida, and I had a layover in Dallas. And they announced that the plane, because the model plane I was on was the model plane that we made the expose on. And so we're in Dallas, and they said, we're having mechanical problems with the plane, so it's not going to be fixed for 4 or 5 hours. You know, have dinner on us at whatever the airport restaurants in Dallas. And I'm like freaking out. I'm like, I want to know what mechanical failure you're having before I get on that plane again. They wouldn't tell me, and they were about to totally take me off. I was so freaking out. And I'm like, look, I just made a documentary on this. Okay? And I just really want to know, is the fuselage okay? That was scary. It really made me, from Dallas to Fort Lauderdale, I was like ready to die. It was, oh dear. Atlanta Airport. Not Atlantic, Atlanta. That's productive, Mike. Come do mine. Yeah, 747s. Yeah, what's really sad, Dark Lord, is 4 years, 5 years after we made this documentary, there was a flight from, I think, England to Greece that disappeared over the water. And it was of the model plane that this problem was. And then there was another one, I want to say, that went down in North Africa with the same problem. Southwest Airlines developed, I think, some rips, and they grounded their whole fleet, and because of this issue. And I think the UAE bought their aircraft, and I don't even know if they're aware of the problem or if they've fixed the problem. And then the double scary thing is, it was so bad, the FAA decided that they weren't going to inspect planes anymore and turned the safety inspection over to the aircraft manufacturers to police themselves. It's like putting the fox in the hen house to, I don't want to fly. No. I don't have enough trust in corporate America. They put money above our lives, and that's not the way I choose to die. I have a choice. I want to go in my sleep, right? My mother sent me on a cruise, David, for my high school graduation. I never wanted to go on a cruise. Our graduating class, the senior trip was a cruise to Nassau. Yeah, profit over people, always. It was an Italian ship, and I was showing horses at that age, and I used to going to bed like at 8 p.m. and getting up at 4:35 a.m. to go take care of the horses before school. So it was kind of hard for me to break that habit. So I would go to bed early on the cruise and set my alarm for midnight, because the midnight buffet was absolutely wonderful. So I'd get up, I'd eat myself silly, and then go back to bed. And the girl that I shared a cabin with actually lives in Atlanta now, and we're in touch. We went out a couple times when I first moved up here, but we're on opposite ends of the political spectrum, and I think I'm a little too to the left for her. I don't mind her views, but I think I'm just a little bit too weird for her. But she's still on my Facebook page. She hasn't given totally up on me. We just don't talk. But we had a good time, and I wasn't into gambling, and we went to Paradise Island, and I look at pictures of me from back then, and I said, what happened? I was so cute. What happened, Lisa? But my ship that I was on, I want to say it was the Leonardo da Vinci, went to Cuba. One of their cruise places to go was Cuba, and it burned in the harbor, Havana harbor. So I'm glad I wasn't on the ship when it caught fire. But the Italian crew, boy, are they cute. Bye, Gary. Thanks for dropping by. I'll try to catch you next live if I'm actually at my desk, okay? He's tired of hearing me yada, yada, yada. So I've kind of run out of things to talk about if y'all want to talk about something else. Yeah, I know, Dark Lord. Sometimes I look in the mirror and I say, Ma, when did you get here? And then I'm depressed. But I will say I've been blessed with nice skin. That was my grandmother. She didn't have wrinkles until she was in her 80s. What kind of horses did I have? Let's see. My first horse was what they call a running Appaloosa. He was a cross between an Appaloosa and a thoroughbred. So he was built like a thoroughbred with spots. And he was a stallion. And when I bought him, I gelded him. And I had him throughout high school, junior high, high school, and took him with me to college because I went to Virginia Intermont College in Bristol, Virginia as a horsemanship major / pre-vet, at which time I was on scholarship, but my mother was paying for his board and she lost her job. So being the responsible kid that I was, I sold him. Regretted it the rest of my life. I would not have made it through adolescence without Copper Joe. And then after Charlie and I were married and bought our first house, there was a horse up the street who had a foal and died, and I took the foal in and bottle fed it, and that was Jupiter. He was an Arab crossed with an Appaloosa, so he looked like an Arab, but he was white with black spots. He was really kind of pretty. I babysat my neighbor's Tennessee walking horses and saved the life of one of them that colicked kind of bad while she was off showing. And so they gave me one of their horses. So I had a Tennessee walking horse. And about that time, I was training other people's horses. I had a horse I was training off the track, a thoroughbred, that flipped with me at a gallop. And when I hit the ground, I broke my back. And I couldn't ride the Appaloosa anymore because his trot would jar my back and I'd lose feeling from the waist down. It was a double compression fracture. So I was given this walking horse, which has a smooth gait, and I could ride her on trail rides. So I had 2 half-breed Appaloosas, one bred with thoroughbred, one crossed with an Arabian, a purebred show horse, Tennessee walking horse. And then we moved to Florida, and I was teaching emotionally challenged and learning disabled children to ride. And one of my clients bred thoroughbreds. And I don't like thoroughbreds, but her daughter had a learning disability that was rather severe. And she couldn't find a riding coach that would work with her daughter until she found me. And the little girl was with me for a couple of years before she discovered boys and quit riding horses to chase boys. But her mother gave me one of her thoroughbred fillies, who was actually a granddaughter of Secretariat, if you're old enough to remember the Kentucky Derby winner Secretariat. And okay, so David just typed in Secretariat before I said what mentioned Secretariat. Good night, Suzanne. Yes, it's 3 a.m. I'm so sorry that you lost a horse to colic. That's traumatic. It's the neighbor's horse I saved from colic, from recognizing that it was colicking when it was bumping its lip before it actually went down with it. You don't care for thoroughbreds and Arabians. I didn't care for either one until I owned the Arabian App cross. His name was Jupiter. Man, he was tough and he was smart. But the thoroughbred that she gave me, the Secretariat granddaughter, has to be the most athletic horse I ever owned. I mean, I'd walk up on her and one day her face was at the fence and she was just kind of standing there with the fence almost pressing into her neck. And I called her Flicka. And hey, Flicka, what are you doing? Because you want to let a horse know that you're there. You don't just surprise them walking up behind them. And she tucked her head to the side, didn't put it down, but tucked it to the side and began jumping from side to side like a slalom skier goes down the slalom course. Now, usually a horse to make a move like that needs to tuck their head down, but this mare could do it without moving her head, which really athletic. So that answers your question. And I don't like that. She broke my hand. I used to type 140 words a minute, which is pretty fast, which was good as a reporter because I could type as fast as you could talk and keep up with you. But when she was in the cross ties with her feet being trimmed, and thoroughbreds tend to box. And she reared up and boxed out and caught me between my index finger and where my thumb connects to my hand, and broke that long bone. And now I can only type 85 words a minute. So it slowed me down being able to keep up with conversation. And then about 6 months after that, again, I had her in the cross ties. And thoroughbreds are nuts, okay? She reared up for no particular reason. I was grooming her. She reared up, flipped over in the cross ties. And this is when I learned that we had built our hallway too narrow because I couldn't get out of her way. And I crouched down at the wall while she scrambled. And she kicked out with her hind leg and caught me mid-shin and broke my leg. So she was able to get back up on her feet, but I crawled out of the barn into the pasture and sat with my back against the barn wall for several hours before I tried to move. And I remember that Arab Appaloosa came up and stood over me with his head over me and protected me from the other horses until I could move. And then when we finally were able to x-ray me, they could show that she had broken my leg with that kick. So I don't like thoroughbreds. Most of my major physical injuries were done with thoroughbreds. So I ended up giving my horses to a thoroughbred farm in Ocala with the understanding that they couldn't break up the trio, that they needed to. They could use her as a broodmare or a riding horse, but they would have to agree to keep the older, by that time, 30-year-old Tennessee walking horse and 22-year-old Appaloosa Arab. They had to keep them until they died, so that's where they ended up. So Dark Lord doesn't like Arabians either. Lost 3 from colic over 20 years. It's terrible. Were they sand colicking, David? In Florida, we had to really watch for sand colic. Horses have broken your arm and his wrist and his collarbone. Yeah, my right collarbone is broken and it healed underneath the joint. And I've had so many doctors want to re-break it and reset it, telling me my older age it's going to bother me. Well, my shoulders bother me, but you're not breaking my bones on purpose. I'm sorry. And what happened here was I was exercising a Appaloosa stallion, and I had him at a lope. And all of a sudden, he decided to flip. And he just tucked his head and he rolled. And I hit the dirt on his shoulder and snapped that bone. So I've had 2 skull fractures, a fractured neck, double compression fracture in my spine. I fell off a horse when I was like 9 or 10, and my left foot hung in the stirrup. And I hung upside down, and my hip came out of joint, and I twisted all the way around with my leg out of joint. And I don't know how far he ran. He was at a flat gallop before the stirrup leather came off the saddle. And I remember the doctor, as he snapped my leg back in place, saying, "This is going to hurt you when you're older." Oh my God, does it? But only within the last couple of years. So I made it till in my 60s before that started bothering me. But then I've had broken wrists, broken arms, broken feet. A draft horse broke all the bones in my feet by stepping on it. Broken legs, crushed kneecap. I like to joke that if they bury me and dig me up 100 years from now and look at all the injuries I've had, they're going to think I was an abused woman. And I did it all to myself with horses. So now you know when you see me in my videos and I'm moving a little stiff or not moving real well, you know that one of my injuries or several of my injuries are reacting to the weather or something like that. But you know, the things we do to ourselves, we shouldn't really bitch and moan about it because we did it to ourselves. So Dark Lord says she's only had her foot broken. Yeah, you couldn't feel it. Knocked out a few teeth, David. Broke your arm and your wrist and your collarbone. Yeah, I'm a wreck, David. I'm a wreck. But I've been told that I have a high tolerance for pain. It's 3:16. I hear something moving around the hallway. I hope I haven't woken up Charlie. It might be one of the cats trying to get in. So David, we're going to be setting the possums loose next week, the big group of them. So they're ready to go. How old are you, David? I was going to say, if you're near my age, give it some time. They'll come back and they'll haunt you, your injuries. Oh, it's Brucey the garden cat clawing at the screen. No, I'm not going to let you in. You'll wake Charlie up. No. Oh, I had some packages come from Amazon today. Should I open those? I think I know what it is. Anyone want to guess what Crazy Lisa has ordered from Amazon? I got an envelope. You're 63. I'm 63. We're the 1960s babies, huh? A modern buttercup. Those of you who don't know the inside joke there. Hey, what do you think of that butter cutter? Is that kind of cool? And that is pewter, right? I don't think they make things out of pewter anymore. There's 2 of these. Who knows what this is? Who knows what that is? Sumo belt. And it goes with this. Let's see. This is funny. Charlie doesn't allow me to have anything sharp because I always cut myself. Let's see if I can avoid cutting myself with this. Oh, really? Sometimes Amazon's packaging. What goes with a sumo belt? Can y'all see what that says? Oh, we'll be crazy together, Dark Lord, okay? This is a pH meter. I am determined to master sourdough bread and also fermenting. I'm about to start fermenting 3 kinds of onions. One with tarragon, one with rosemary, and one with thyme. And I'm going to start. You have to look at your pH, okay? The sumo belt. The sumo belt is actually because, I still can't cook a loaf of bread that's edible. And I've got beautiful sourdough starter that I've kept alive now for the last 10 months. So I'm going to start trying to bake bread now that the weather is supposed to be cooling off, right? But when you use a Dutch oven, you put that in the bottom of the Dutch oven with your loaf of bread dough on top of it. And when it's done cooking, you use those wings to lift it up and take it out. The parchment paper, we were talking about being sustainable. The parchment paper, you go through an awful lot of it and it just gets thrown away. And so whereas the silicone, again, we're back to oil-based things. So I think silicone, correct me if I'm wrong, David may know this. Silicone is a petroleum product. But it should last years and years, and I'm not cutting trees down and using paper to bake with. So let's see, hopefully that'll last for a long time. And I'll actually learn how to do an edible sourdough loaf of bread. I'm determined. I am determined. So you use one of those Mike, I thought Mike was leaving. Mike, so you use the pH meter for your hydroponics? So it's not petroleum-based, Dark Lord? Made from sand like glass. Okay. So I am being environmentally conscious with it then, am I? Does anyone in here do sourdough? I do have a video that we made this week on an herb bread that I make out of pizza dough. And I do buy the pizza dough at the grocery store. It's already made, just a lump of dough. Look for that video because it is absolutely delicious. And I tear off pieces and make little individual rounds of bread. And we had 11 rounds of bread from one pizza dough, bag of pizza dough. And Charlie and I ate it all within 24 hours. I made chili and it was really good dunking the chili. I keep seeing something fly by my head. But I swear to you, when I turn around, I don't see any moths or flies or anything. So I don't know what the heck keeps flying past. Is it a ghost? Spirit of pets gone by? Never made sourdough, David. It's a science experiment. Night, GT. Thanks for keeping us company. Yeah, Mike, Charlie tried hydroponics when we were in Fort Lauderdale. And he had those little round balls, clay balls in his hydroponics. I love sourdough bread, David, with rosemary in it. Yeah, I'm glad you're home safe too, GT. Hope I kept you awake on the way home. Cool. Y'all are educating me on the silicone. Out of soda. On the water. And no, I don't buy bottled water. People keep giving me bottled water and I don't like wasting it, so I'll go ahead and drink it. I don't like the chemicals that leach out of the plastic. It can be attributed to the increase in breast cancer, but what the hell? All right. Well, I suspect I've prattled on long enough. Look for me sometime this week for the integrated pest management. I may only give you a day notice because I may only have a day. What's that on my screen? Yuck. I may only have a day's notice that I'm going to have free time in the evening. So if you're interested in learning about integrated pest management, look for my announcement that I'm going live and join me. It's going to aim for 9 o'clock, whatever night it is, because by then we've got all the chores done around here and have eaten. And hopefully you do too. And you've got the kids to bed or whatever and can sit back and grab a cup of tea and join me. We just stick ours next to the water heater. Well, you make it sound easy, Dark Lord. You make it sound easy, you know. But I end up with door stoppers or something you can use for self-defense instead of edible bread. But we're going to keep trying. I don't give up easy. One thing I will tell you, though, is the waffles you can make or the pancakes you can make from the starter are to die for. Oh, they're so good, especially with fresh honey over the top. It's just really good. All right, guys, I'm gonna go watch TV or something and try to wind down. It's 3:30 here, 3:28. Charlie gets up at 5:30, so I might as well stay up all night. Because I think if I go to bed at this point, I'll wake him up, and he doesn't need to be rudely awakened. He needs his rest. So you all be well. Remember to tell those that you love them every day. You never know when you're going to lose the chance to do it again. I appreciate all of you dropping by and spending time with me and putting up to my nonstop chatter. So maybe next time one of you will come join me in live. We can figure out how to do that, and we can just talk and chatter. That is after the next integrated pest management discussion. So for those of us who are heading into the winter gardening season, and even if you're not, what can you do to eradicate or get better control of whatever pests ate your crops this summer? Okay? You all have a wonderful evening. Love you. And we'll catch you on the next one, right? Bye.